And there's another new coach in town, and that's the new coach for the Bear River Bears. And he joins us now in studio, Trampis Waite. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Glad to be here.
So, Coach, just you're from where originally? Oregon area?
Yeah, Eastern Oregon, Ontario. It's right on the border. Grew up there. I played ball at Eastern Oregon University, and then the last couple of years I've been in Southern Oregon, Medford area, kind of bottom left corner, and then now I'm here. So, all in Oregon though. I mean, we lived in Montana for a little bit, but I'm Oregon at heart. So
go ahead, Jason.
I guess the big question then is, you grew up in Oregon, maybe a little bit of Montana, played ball in Oregon, coaching in Oregon a little bit too. How on earth did you end up in northern Utah?
I wasn't planning on it, that's for sure. I didn't even know Bear River was a high school. I'd never heard of it. My dad was actually the head coach up at Rigby, Idaho, just north in eastern Idaho, and he was there for a couple years, so he kind of knew the area. And then I actually had a buddy that's the OC at Ridgeline, and he reached out to me and told me that Bear River is a good spot. And so I put my name in for it and drove down and drove the 16 hours or whatever it was to do the interview and did the interview and drove back the 16 hours, and I got the job the next day. So, but yeah, I wasn't planning on going to Utah. I was just looking for head coaching opportunities, and it just kind of presented itself, and it seems like a good spot.
So when did you arrive basically on campus, so to speak, so you could be here and get familiar with the players and the personnel and what you've got?
I got here for good 2 weeks ago, and so we started our program on the 13th, and we've been doing summer workouts. Luckily for me, I was hired in November, so I know a lot of these coaches have been hired in the January through March. I was hired early, so I was able to do a parent meeting in December. I was able to do some spring mini camp in March. And so I kind of got to know the kids, got to know the parents. I, started to push out some notifications, kind of figuring it all out. And then, so by the time I got here on the 13th, we were already running. So it was good.
So I know I read one thing. It said you mentioned trying to push youth football kind of in that Bear River area. Like, how much does that help you as far as, the high school program getting, youth programs up and running?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing out there is we got to build numbers. We're a small town. We got to build depth. I think that's been a huge crutch for them in the past, especially last year. So you saw Bear River with a lot of injuries. And so that's huge for me because I like to do, the same schemes throughout. So I do, offense and defense schemes, and I hope the middle school and the youth levels run some sort of our plays, and get that figured out. So, we've been talking with the coaches, we've been talking with the directors, and getting it all figured out and funneling it somehow to that high school program.
So it's always tough to replace somebody who's been around, but Coach Wise was there like forever, and he had a great legacy, multiple state championships or trips to state championships. And so you've got some big shoes to fill. Have you been able to meet with him or talk to him about what's worked over time with what he was doing, or what's been like that relationship and figuring out what was going on before and kind of continuing that legacy?
Well, we share an office, so that's a little interesting situation. But no, I met him. He's a good guy. I know Bear River's had a rich tradition. I think it's just kind of re-energizing that tradition. I know they had success early on. I know they've been up and down. So it's figuring out how to get back to those winning ways and add a little spice to it. We're trying to re-energize and revamp everything. His son is my O-line coach, so I'm still keeping some guys around that know Bear River football, but I also brought in 5 to 6 new faces. So I think it's going to take a little bit of combination. And I think administration wanted a new face and some new ideas, and I think that's kind of why I'm here. So
I guess we can maybe get into scheme in a second, but if there's like one thing that you want Bear River to be known for, just one thing, obviously you want to be known for a lot of things, but there's one thing. When people say Bear River football, they think of this thing. What's that defining trait for Bear River you're looking to get?
I think discipline. The things that we've been working on these last 2 weeks are just going back to the small details. And I think that's kind of where programs lose their way a little bit. And if we're disciplined, we kind of got a new slogan called Bear Out. And that's kind of just, its definition is we're confirming what we're doing every day, right? And so we're confirming that we're disciplined in the little details. We're confirming that we're, out there to build this thing up and to start winning. And, the kids have been awesome. The kids have been really energized. They've been really upbeat, which is surprising for what they went through last year. But I've been really happy with that. And so, I hope that we're disciplined. I hope that we're organized, and then the rest will take care of itself.
We're talking to Trampis Waite. He's a new head coach for the Bear River Bears and just arrived in town last week.
Yep.
But certainly you've been in connection and in contact with students and coaches and building up for this upcoming season. You mentioned you've got a friend who is an assistant coach in Region 11 here. So what is the sense that you've been able to get so far in your early stages of getting a feel for what this region looks like?
I know it's, I think it's the toughest, if not the toughest, region in the state. There's some good teams. I know Ridgeline's been on top. I know Skyview has a rich tradition. I know Mountain Crest is going to be good. I know all those teams are going to be good. So it's tough. I know I'm going into a situation where we're at the bottom of the barrel. But like I said, I've known the area. My dad's been a head coach close. I've got friends here. I recruited this area when I was a graduate assistant in college, and so I've been around it. But I do know that this is kind of the path to the playoffs. This if you can get through this region, you're going to do pretty well. And so that's kind of how I see it, and that's what I'm telling the kids. Get through the region, and the rest will take care of itself.
So thinking a little scheme wise, like being a small school, like how much does that impact what you can run as far as schemes? Like I know you've run the spread offense a little bit. Is that something you can pull off at a smaller school? Or do you have to kind of lead more on kind of a running attack, some of the more basic things that you can teach?
I don't think it's a small school or a big school type of thing. I think it's just what kids you have, and we're lucky we got two quarterbacks that are going to compete, and they're two very good athletes. And so with my spread schemes, I need a very good quarterback that's smart, and I got two of them. And so that really fit well. I know Bear River's been, veer. They've been, muddle, huddle, and go, right? Run game. And so it's just figuring out how we can implement the tradition with the new schemes. And so really, it's tailored to the kids. I came in with the spread. I came in with my defensive schemes, and I was prepared to change them if I needed to. But I think we got the quarterbacks that can do it. I think we got depth at receiver. Linemen are going to get there, right? And we're going to figure it out. So, but yeah, I don't think it's a small town or a big town thing. It's just who you got, especially at the high school level.
Yeah, that's very true. That could change from year to year. But one thing that was pretty consistent with Coach Wise and just Bear River football in general was that they always play tough defensively. They're always hard-nosed, gritty. They always just would never back down from anybody. Your general philosophy defensively, and again, I understand it kind of depends on your personnel, but generally a 3-4, 4-3. What kind of general defensive philosophy are you bringing to Bear River?
Yeah, we're going to be a 3-3 stack. And so I think we're going to be very different than a lot of Utah schools. I think a lot of Utah schools like to send it, right, and bring the blitz. I think that's a common trend around here, and we're going to kind of stay back. We're going to keep everything in front and trust our kids, because like you said, we got tough kids out there. We got kids that'll compete, and so it's just letting them not think so much and just going out and playing. And that's kind of my defensive scheme is we'll just keep it in front and let them go play ball.
So you have a background, obviously, as a quarterback, so your background is kind of offense. Have you just also been running the defense as well? Do you focus on both sides of the ball as a head coach?
Both are my schemes that I brought in. Obviously, I got a defensive coordinator. He's implementing his own kind of twist on things. But yeah, they're both my schemes. I overlook it both as a head coach. I love offense. These last couple of weeks when I've had to do both, I'm starting to lean towards that defensive side and having fun with it. But yeah, hopefully my assistant coaches can kind of pick it up a little bit and start taking over the defense and handling that. And then as soon as they do that, I can delegate some more responsibility, which is what you want as a leader, right? But yeah, I'm an offensive kind of guy. I've always been. So
Do you feel like you have your coaching staff all filled out now, or are you still looking to fill some roles?
Yeah, we got about 10 guys on staff, and we filled it. We had a guy running our strength and conditioning program actually went over to Layton Christian, so I had to fill that, but we filled it from within, and I feel really confident with our staff. Like I said, we got about 3 or 4 guys that have been there forever. My freshman coach has been with the last 4 Bear River coaches, and you know how far that goes back with Coach Wise being there 20 years. So
yeah.
He's been there forever. We got another guy that was on staff, and then we got Coach Wise's son doing the O-line, and then we actually had quite a bit of guys moving into town, which was nice, and they've been great these last couple weeks in workouts and everything like that. So I'm really happy with the staff we were able to put together.
So you mentioned kind of how tough this region is, and that Bear River's not been super successful recently. So what's your kind of plan years, 1, 2, what do you want to accomplish early on as far as the long-term goal obviously is, state championship and whatnot. What's kind of the year 1 expectation, things you want to accomplish?
Yeah, I think just getting back to competing, right? And we want to be in football games, and I think we will. I think last year, like I said, they were plagued with injury. They had a lot of sophomores that had to get some playing time, and so we may have 6 returning starters on offense and defense, but you have 15 guys that played significant snaps, right? So I think it's just teaching them to compete again, give them confidence in what they're doing. Like I said, kids have been receptive with our new schemes, and they're going to build some confidence as we get farther in the off season and towards August, and just giving them confidence. And if it's a tie ball game at the end of the game, then we're there, right? And then we'll start pulling out those games. So
what does your summer look like right now? I know you've done a few things here and there, but things really get going in earnest in early August, but what does it look like right now for your team?
We got workouts all the way up to moratorium, so end of June. So we'll finish out this week. We'll have a little bit next week. And then we will start practicing for team camp right after moratorium. We're actually going up to my alma mater, Eastern Oregon University. So we're taking the 6-hour bus ride and getting some different competition, because I think that's important too. I know Bear River's always stayed in town for their team camp. They played Box Elder. They just stayed home. And, we're going up and we're going to a camp that has teams from 4 different states. And so I think that is a big thing. The last question of how are we going to change things, right? And it's just, let's compete against those teams. Let's build some confidence, and then once we get back to the region, then we know what we're doing. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then once we get back from that, we'll have about a week off, and then it's go time. And then we're going to be doing a midnight practice. As soon as we can have our first official day, because my philosophy is you're the first to practice in Utah and you're the last to practice in Utah. That's the goal. So we'll have midnight practice. We'll get some pancakes out, do all that, and get the kids excited for the season.
So you were an assistant coach last place you were, or were you a head coach at?
I was the offense coordinator.
Offense coordinator.
Yep.
So this is your first head coaching position. Right?
Yep.
It's like, what's that process been like? Obviously, offensive coordinator, you're kind of high up on that totem pole. But what's it like taking that step to? This is your team. What's that process been like? You look like you have it all planned out so far.
No, I've been planning it the last 15 years. So I've always wanted to be a head coach. My dad was a head coach for 25 plus years, and a pretty successful one. So I've always told him I want to be a head coach, and so he said, okay, well, just sit back and watch and figure it out, right? And so I've been doing that my whole childhood growing up, and I was an assistant at Eastern Oregon, so I got some college experience. I was pretty fortunate at Eagle Point, where I was last stop. As the OC, he gave me a lot of responsibility that would most likely be the head coaching responsibility, and so because he knew my goals. So it was an easy transition. Obviously, with all the politics and all the stuff that you have to deal with as the head coach is tough, and I'll figure it out along the way. But like I said, I've been preparing this since I was 10 years old or whatever it was. So I'm ready to roll.
So a quick follow-up, we'll cut Eric off. So being the coach's kid and growing up, does that make you old school, or do you have like a lot of the new modern stuff?
No, my dad he wanted the next best thing, and so I'm a modern coach. I think especially as a young guy, I'm probably the youngest coach in the region. So yeah, I'm a young coach. My dad thinks he's a young coach. He's an old school guy, but he likes to think he has all the new and improved things. But
the 3-3 stack's kind of a more modern defense.
it is. Yeah,
I
told you, and that's the old man stuff. So
Yeah.
he was new and improved. So.
One last thing, we talked about the region, and you've got a feel for what this region looks like, but there's another rival that's certainly high on the list of teams for Bear River to keep an eye on, and that's Box Elder. What are your initial thoughts? What have you heard about the Bees and the rivalry that exists between those two schools?
It's a rich one. I know they just played their, I think, 100th rivalry game 2 years ago or whatever it was. And it's one of the oldest in Utah. So I know it's big. I know the kids have told me it's big. I got the name wrong right when I got into town, and I was easily corrected right away. But no, Robbie over at Box Elder has been awesome. He's been reaching out. We're in the same district, so he's been helping me out quite a bit. I think we're on the same page. We root for each other until we play, right? And then we're arch enemies. But no, you gotta dive into those rich traditions. You gotta dive into those rivalries, and you have to do all you can to get those kids jacked up for it. So we'll be ready to roll. And I hate the color purple, so that works out. So.
Never know why the Bees were purple like it.
Well, there's an old story on that they got it mixed up with the Roy Royals, who should have been purple.
Supposed to be black and gold, right?
Yeah, it got swapped somehow.
That's weird. It's not like my high school colors, my alma mater, they're brown and gold. So.
Oh, there you go. Brown might be worse than purple. I don't know.
It looks surprisingly good. Like, it sounds ugly, but they actually make it work decently.
I don't know.
Well.
I'd have to see that.
When it's done right.
The jerseys I wore are better than the ones they wear now. Like, they don't do it as well, but when I wore them, they looked pretty good.
I'll take your word for it.
Must have been you that made it look good.
Yeah,
it was me. Standing on the sideline. I didn't do much playing. I stood on the sideline, just looked good.
Well, Coach, wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Excited to see this new chapter of Bear River. We love being able to touch base with the local coaches and find out what's going on with them and what they have planned. And we may try to reach out to you again just before the start of the season,
absolutely.
as you've had a better chance to get a feel for your personnel, and we can talk more specifically about the players and what you have in mind and in store for the upcoming season. But appreciate you coming down, and welcome to Northern Utah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so Trampis Waite, the new head coach for the Bear River Bears, and season begins, when does it begin? The first game's like what, August
12th.
12th. Oh, my word.
There we go.
That's-
Yeah, you've got that circle on your calendar.
Oh, yeah.
You know
Coming up
exactly
fast.
when it is.